to the Pediatric Epilepsy Podcast. I'm Christy Grease with my co-host Dario Herrera. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. We are so excited to have Ashley Point. She is the president of KDVS Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk with you guys.
We're so excited to have you. I mean, not only are you a fellow mama bear, warrior mama of a child with rare disease that happens to be the same one that my daughter has, but you've had just an amazing, like your background is so interesting, and I just can't wait to dive into today's episode and really learn about how 2 years in medical school and time in Washington as a political fundraiser, how in the heck would that have anything to do with running a nonprofit? And I think it probably does. And I think there's a lot of nuggets that you've learned and you thought back then, why am I learning this? And today you're applying it. And we just want to welcome you to the show and would love to hear your journey, Ashley.
Well, thank you so much, Christy. I'm so excited to be here with another fellow KDVS mom. This is exciting. And Daryl will let you kind of talk too, right?
Yeah.
Let him have a word in edgewise.
It's interesting because I didn't even know that Mickey had, the same experience, and I wasn't very familiar with the work that you guys do. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to learn. And I think part of the reason why we wanted to have you on, Ashley, is because there is so much overlap. And just like with IS, there's very little awareness of, how many kiddos this affects and how challenging it makes their life. And I think with that, as people become more aware, only better things can happen and only more people can be engaged and parents can know what to look for. And even caregivers can understand, this a little bit better as they seek to provide better care for, our children too. So I'm so excited to have you on, and I've observed you from afar and have seen a noted shift in the visibility of the KDVS Foundation. So I want to recognize you for that.
Oh, thank you.
The voice is growing, and I was blown away. We served together on I think it's REN.
Yes.
And you had an opportunity to present as a new member organization. We've been a member of that for several years now. And just to feel your passion and your expertise and, how you kind of took the community by storm. I'm excited,
Yeah, I'm excited to share with you guys. I mean, you guys, the seizure epilepsy journey very well. And, I think our communities can partner together and just learn from each other. And I'm excited.
Well, I remember, when, we started Mickey's journey it started with epilepsy. She had a seizure in the middle of the night, and it was this 8-month journey for the diagnosis that we got that she had Coulon-de-Vries syndrome, which is a microdeletion on chromosome 17. And what I was told, I was finally, after having her original infantile spasm diagnosis at 3 months, it wasn't until 11 months that we had genetic testing that Mickey's Miracles advocate so strongly for. And we find out that she has this microdeletion. 65 to 70% of kids with that microdeletion, we were told, have epilepsy. So that's what caused this rare epilepsy that was going to take her life. And then there's all these side effects from having this rare disease. And so we were just in a state of shock. And I want to know, what was that like for you? How did you find out that your child had KDVS? And then what was that journey for you, uncovering what that meant for your family?
Very similar journey to you, Christy. We, our son was born early and he had, trouble feeding and things like that. And we were like, well, okay, he was early. We'll kind of let that go. And then he had trouble sitting up. And I remember going to his 4-month well child visit, and the pediatrician held him up with her hand and is like, he's got something wrong with his tone. I'm going to send you to PT. And I was so thankful that the pediatrician recognized that so early on, because I do think early intervention with, many children is so helpful. So then we immediately started physical therapy. And then at about a year, he still wasn't babbling, talking as much. And so we were getting ready to have that referral for speech therapy. But again, because we had the therapist already in our house, she could recognize, hey, they need some speech therapy. And then we were at a football game in West Virginia where we were living. They tailgate in the same parking lot as the hospital. So we're just sitting there and tailgating, having a great time, and all of a sudden we look over and he's having a seizure. And so we didn't even call the ambulance. We just picked him up, grabbed him, and went to the emergency department. And he had a seizure, and they finally stopped it. And we did an overnight in the hospital just to be sure. And that's when they recognized that it wasn't a febrile seizure, but just a tonic-clonic seizure. And that led us down a path of like, okay, well, why is he having this seizure? Why is he having this hypotonia? And then that led us to, once we got that seizure diagnosis, that really opened up a lot of genetic testing for us. We went to genetics and they said, well, because you have that, you can really test a lot more. And so that was very helpful for us. And once we tested, 2 months later, all the genetic tests came back, and they called and said, he's got coolant to freeze, and here's some information, and, thanks. And it was scary because, I'm sure, Christy, with you went online and you look and you're like, oh my gosh, what, like, this is all I have.
I couldn't do it. I made my husband do all of that. I was just in a mental space that it was just too much. And, when you start looking these things up and they're so dire, that for me, it was like self-preservation. I just told him, you look it up, have the knowledge, but I just need to focus on survival and keeping our child alive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so we, I completely understand that. And then we had so we were kind of out in and out of the hospital a little bit those first 2 years of life with just respiratory issues, because Davis, not only part of his KDVS is he has tracheomalacia. So his throat is floppy. So every cold he got, especially in those early years, was very severe for him. We ended up probably 4 or 5 times hospitalized. And then right before he turned 2, we ended up in the PICU for a month, because he got RSV, which turned into acute respiratory distress syndrome, which turned into being on, the tube, the ventilator for 3 weeks. And so it was, a lot. And, but then, he gets out, and then a month later he's running across the Golden Gate Bridge, because kids are so resilient and they can do just anything. So that was our journey from kind of those first 2 years. Those were the really, I would say, rough years. Cause it's just like, felt like one thing after another. As soon as you made progress, it was like, oh my God, there's something else wrong. We just kind of, and that's the thing with KDVS is it affects lots of different systems, brain, heart, lungs, orthopedic. It's a lot of issues.
Actually, let me interrupt you just for a second. What's going through your mind as a parent during this time? I mean, because I know obviously there's doctor's appointments and there's your concern for your child, and there are questions more than answers, and there's things you don't even know what to think of or what to expect. Beyond the medical visits and all of that, like what's your general, even mental approach to what's going on in your head during that as a mom,
Yeah, good question. As any parent, you don't want to see your child suffering, and you don't want to not have the answers. So, working through all the issues. And then also we had an older child. And so it was also sad at times to see how he was affected by, Davis's and all the struggles. I mean, he has, seen EMS in our house repeatedly. He's seen our son have seizures, and he's seen the breathing treatments, and he's experienced, mom and dad being gone for extended periods of time because, we had to be in the hospital with Davis. And so then our older son really, you always feel bad about those things. You want every kid to have just the perfect life, and you feel for all your kids. But I'm much more like I'm very much the information person. Like, I want to know all the problems, how are we going to fix them, and kind of move forward with it. But he's also just a really happy kid. That's one great thing. And I'm sure Mickey's saying, like, just about, they're very happy children. They love talking to people. They love singing. They love dancing. And so it's fun. They're just sweet kids, and they make you want to do everything you can for them. So it's exciting.
It is so true. I mean, it has really been so beautiful. They call them cool kids, and they literally, watching them together. We went to a meetup in Nebraska, and it was just these like, hi, how are you? And they were all so joyful. These kids, they're literally, their demeanor is that of joyfulness. I can't describe it, right, Ashley? But it's, absolutely. I think that's, innately, they're little souls, but to have that, is really a big light in all of this chaos, and was actually one of the things that really, I don't know about you, but was very challenging in the first years dealing with epilepsy, was that some of the medications, or when she was seizing and it was uncontrollable, her whole this joyful personality was gone. Like, she stopped giggling, and that was one of the most devastating things that we experienced. And I mean, I remember those things that, to answer to your question, for me, Dario, it was just survival of you were just, and I love, Ashley's way of handling that was like, let me get as much information as possible. I had a binder this thick. Did you have the binder?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I had it all tracked on my phone, when the seizure happened, how long it lasted, just, and we always have the video, because I know, I'm sure, every neurologist says we need the video, and I'd be like, here's the video, and they're like, okay, you're that mom. And I'm like, yeah, I am that mom. And I know all, what we're supposed to be doing. And I really try the best to get everybody, on the same goal. So
so you did a stint in medical school, I saw, and having 3 babies, maybe did that have an effect on you leaving? Because I am sure all of that information that you learned in those 2 years, how are you applying that right now as the president of a nonprofit and in the medical journey with your son?
It's come in extremely handy. I mean, those 2 years that I did, and then left to have our oldest child, those have come in so handy. I can, talk with the other physicians and doctors and stuff, and really understand what they're talking about. When we were in the PICU, we had a great doctor, and every day he'd come in and be like, all right, Mom, what do you want to do today? And we would talk about it. It was very much like we were a team. He appreciated my opinion. I, of course, appreciated his opinion. And the nurses would come in and talk about, we should look at this today, or is this the problem today? And it just and the RTs, and just everybody worked together as a team. And I think having that medical background and being able to kind of understand a little bit more of the lingo came in very handy.
Can you give us an overview of what Coulon-Duffrey syndrome is?
I can. Coulon-Duffrey syndrome is, like Christy said, a microdeletion of the 17th chromosome, this little section on the Q arm, or it can be a mutation in the cancel-1 gene. And then from there, it causes, all kinds of problems. It causes speech delay in 100% of the children, causes hypotonia. It can cause heart and lung issues, orthopedic issues. Like when the kids are floppy, they struggle a little bit more. And then obviously it causes seizures in, over half the children. And sometimes the seizures can be, pretty bad seizures, or they come very frequently, or they last a long time, or they're very hard to get control of. So it affects really every system in the body. And, we're just working to educate our families and make sure that they get the care they need, just like you guys are doing, educating families and trying to get them to epileptologists and level 4 centers. I mean, that's great, important work, because some people, you don't know what you don't know. And so when you find resources, it's very, very helpful and gets you where you need to be.
So actually, what does KVDS, the organization, how do they support families? What's the crux of your work? Where do people find you? Give us all the juicy details on the incredible work that you guys are doing. And I know I've said that a couple of times, but it's not often that an organization, I think, presents itself the way KVDS presents itself. The online content that you guys share, the conversations you host, the statistics and the emotion behind all of that, and the information behind all of that really is impressive. So I want to, from one executive director to, the leader of another nonprofit, I recognize the work that you guys are doing, and I'm so impressed with it. So help us understand, in greater detail what the foundation does.
Well, thank you. Yes. So our mission, of course, is, education, awareness, and research. And we're very lucky that we have, Doctors Coulon and DeFries, who identified the syndrome in 2006 on our medical advisory board, along with other experts. We have a speech pathologist and an epileptologist, and then another geneticist. And then 3 of our parents, a dentist, a pediatric gastroenterologist, and a urologist, are all round out our medical advisory board, in addition to a neuroscientist who works with Dr. Coulon and DeFries. So we've got a great team of medical advisors, but then from there, we also have an amazing community support. Every time like a new family gets on a support page and posts, hi, I just got the diagnosis. Can someone help me? Everyone posts, this is my kid. Let me tell you this. Let me help you with that. And I think it just, is amazing that our community can be so supportive, because we all know when, you're struggling, so it helps sometimes to help somebody else. And so we also, host webinars. We try to do at least one webinar a month. We just had one last night with Dr. Morgan, our speech pathologist, and she's just so great. She said, on there, if you guys have any questions, just email me. If you need help getting devices for school or help with speech therapy at school, email me and I can help you guys get that. So I think that's, just a testament to just the people we've collected, as everyone really is supportive and wants to help. And then we also do family connections. Every month we do like a KDVS, we call it KDVS Connect. And one of our board members who has a social work background, she, gets families on, and sometimes they talk about the emotional stuff. Sometimes they talk about the happy stuff. Sometimes it's grandparents. So it really provides that opportunity for different people to connect. And then every other year we hold, as Christy talked about going to Nebraska, we hold the our Patient Advocacy Summit. And we haven't been able to hold them for a few years, obviously because of COVID, but we're very excited to host it in July of 2023 in Orlando. And it's just so fun to bring all the families together. I mean, I went to my first one in 2019, and I was standing there and I heard a little boy talking next to me, and I kept looking down at him because I thought it was my son Davis, because he sounded just like Davis and looks just like him. He's got the blonde hair and the fair skin, but he wasn't. And it's just so amazing just to go there and connect with families. I mean, some of my closest friends now, I made through going to those summits and making those connections. So those are some of the things we do. Obviously, we're all funded by, donations from families. We don't receive any money from the government or anything like that. But we're just, always trying to promote awareness and education, and then really research, because we do want to find, how, what are all the problems that individuals with KDVS have, but then also how are we going to treat those problems? What is the best kind of speech therapy to do? What's the best, neurologic medicines, and how do those affect the KDVS brain different from, your typical brain? So it's just trying to understand that. I'm trying to think those are the kind of the basics of what we do. But thank you.
That's it. That's all.
That's all. Yeah.
I remember, Ashley, that when we first had this diagnosis, that the geneticist came in and they had narrowed it down, and then once it was determined that it was KDVS that Mickey had, there were some screenings, that diagnostic testing that we did to rule out any issues with, I remember, kidney and heart. Can you share what those tests are? I just want to, for any family that gets this diagnosis, I'm sure their hospital is well read, but I feel it's been very important for us as an organization to advise on the little details. What specific diagnostic tests should a family whose child has this KDVS diagnosis have in order to rule out any issues with other major organs or systems in the body?
Right. We have actually working on pulling that together. But some of the things that the experts on our medical advisory board have mentioned, and some of the families do, to kind of start from the top down, would be to get an MRI of the brain, because some of the children have agenesis missing corpus callosum, or problems with that. And then also that can get that baseline MRI, so you can kind of see what's going on moving forward. Some families who have feeding issues, they can look at like cleft palates, things like that. And then, so like I said, the laryngeal tracheomalacia, that can be, investigated by an ENT if there's struggles with feeding or reflux or things like that. And then the heart, a lot of times the children have, an atrial septal defect or a ventral septal defect. And that can really be shown through going to your cardiologist and finding out through an echo if there's any problems in the heart. And then from there, let's see, urology for sure to, check the kidneys to see if there's any hydronephrosis or anything like that going on. I'm trying to think what else. And then just, orthopedics always comes into play because of that hypotonia. And so like a lot of the children wear AFOs, SMOs, things like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
What's next for KDVS? I know you guys have conversation online that you guys are hosting. Is it this week, or when is that?
We hosted one last night with Dr.
Last night. Tell us about
therapy, and she's doing a great research into speech therapy. And so we just talked about her study that she's doing and how to get more families involved in that. So keep that going. We also have an eye study going on right now because we're trying to figure out if there are complications with the eye because of KDVS. And so we had a researcher reach out to us for that. So working on that. We're still working on the brain organoids we have going on in the Netherlands with Dr. Kazri and Dr. Kuhlen and Dr. Fries. So that keeps that busy.
Oh my gosh, Ashley, this is so exciting.
And then Dr. Myers up in Canada, he's still working on some struggles with dysautonomia and then ESES or CSWS, depending on what people call it, just to see, again, how are more KDVS individuals affected by those types of neurologic issues than not, and kind of how to finding the right medication, because I'm sure, as you guys know, ESES and CSWS are hard to treat, and finding that right medication. So
if someone wanted to see that
research-wise, moving forward, family-wise, we're excited to hold our summit, of course, in July. And then just the more webinars and connects with everybody is always fun. We just, and making that, now with joining REN and a few of the other organizations, making those connections with other foundations and really figuring out how to partner, because there's so many of us trying to do so much. But if we work together, then I really feel like we can find that connection, because what if KDVS is very similar to another rare disease? And if we work those, maybe it's the same drug, or maybe it's a very similar drug. So really, I think making those connections with everybody is so important. So we'll keep doing that, and just keep talking to you guys and keep just moving along.
Ashley, where do people find you on? So if someone wanted to see the conversation last night with the speech pathology, where would they go? What's your website? What's Instagram? And give us all
give us the
details about where we find and what the work you guys are doing.
Yes. Well, our website is kdvsfoundation.org. Obviously, you can like our Facebook page, and that's where that video is right now. We also have a YouTube channel, and several of our videos are up there, so you can find more information there. And then we're on Instagram, and we're on Twitter, and that's, I think, the extent of our social media. Of course, you can always get online and log in and get on our email list, and we'll send you emails about KDVS and all the activities we have going on. So, but we're excited. We've got a lot of great families that are wanting to get involved, research committee or communications committee or summit committee, and it's just everyone coming together. I think will really keep pushing, and we get our new families diagnosed all the time. Our outreach committee is really starting to form like a peer-to-peer support networks and ambassador programs. So they make those connections and talk with everybody.
Ashley, I mean, I'm just so excited. When this happened, when we received our diagnosis, it was 2012. And then you mentioned that the rare disease was just discovered only 6 or 7 years prior to that. We really are on this like amazing cusp of, we have enough information to connect this community, yet there's so much more to come. And Dario and I just got back from the American Epilepsy Society annual meeting, and connecting with all the doctors and researchers there. I just feel like this is an amazing start to the year. I'm really excited that you're leading this organization, and Mickey's Miracles is here to support you, the whole entire community. And we just thank you for your leadership and stepping up and taking all these skills from your background and applying them today to help your son and all the cool kids like him. We just can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate you guys and letting me come on and talk about KDVS and my son, and then all of the KDVS individuals. But then also, I mean, Christy, you've done so much with Mickey's Miracles. And I mean, I think that's really helpful to bring all this attention to seizures and epilepsy, and how it is so important to find that perfect neurologist, epileptologist who can really hone in, because not everybody can. And finding those connections, and really, it's a lot of work. And I know, Dario, you are busting it too, just trying to keep going, right? With a few kids on the side and a few other things going on. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys are both working, I think, tirelessly for the whole community. And
Actually, before we let you go, I want to close with 2 questions, right? I'll leave the tough questions for the end. Talk to us a little bit about why urgency is so important. And to parents listening at home, what one thing would you share with them from your experience?
I think urgency is so important, because finding out that your child has this, then you it puts the pieces together. And then also knowing, we had a dad, he just told me yesterday that his they got the diagnosis like a month ago, and they read all the literature and they knew, okay, we need to be on the lookout for seizures. And sure enough, 3 days ago, his child had a seizure. And so he was able to recognize that, okay, that is a seizure. And now we know we need to go and talk to the neurologist, get the medication. We know what to do next. It's not this, oh my gosh, what's going on? It's okay. We knew it was a possibility. It happened. Now we're going to recognize it and deal with it. And just being prepared, I think, is so important. Because, with seizures, I mean, it's very scary when to see your child have a seizure, especially the first one. And then if you're not prepared for it, it can really, be awful. So it's awful anyway, but it can be even more awful if you're not ready for it. So I think that's kind of the sense of urgency to get the diagnosis and then to find the treatment. And then, oh my gosh, what was the second question?
Well, what one thing would you share with a parent at home based on your experience?
Trust your instinct. I think as a parent, if you think something's wrong, something's wrong. We have learned that time and time again with my son. If I'm like, we were sitting there and I thought, he was sick, and my husband's like, yeah, he's got a cold. And I was like, there's something else going on. There's something else going on. And he's like, okay, you want to go to the hospital? Yes. We went to the hospital. We're standing in the triage line. I'm holding him. He starts having a seizure. And they were like, wow, and I was like, it's just, I really feel like you really have to trust your instinct. If you think something's off about your kid, if you're in the hospital even, and they're like, no, he's fine, he's not. Same thing happened. We were at the hospital with Davis in the PICU, and there was something off. He's intubated, he's sedated, he's totally out. And I was like, there's something not right. There's something not right. I pulled off the sheet, and sure enough, he had a femoral artery clot in his leg, and his leg was like dying. So, and I like called the team in, and it started that process. But it's like, if I hadn't have kind of, there's just something not right. I really think that parents just trust your gut, trust your instinct. If there's something wrong, bring it to emergency. And if someone says, no, they're fine, and you don't agree, then find somebody else and keep asking, because KDVS people don't know about. And so you may see a practitioner who's not as willing to dive into the details. So find that person who will. And
amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's so much to unpack in that answer. I love that answer.
And she just hit the home run for us.
Right. I will say there's so much to that answer, and even that, it's underlying, like, if you don't feel like you're in front of the right person, don't stop until you're in front of the right person. I know Christy had that experience. I've been part of, their journey now.
Don't let the white coat fool you. You
Yeah.
stand in front of a white coat, and it's like instinctually, you don't even realize that you give your power away. And I think it's just culturally, we're just taught not to ask questions and question, or it's almost a little flip side in our society now, where we're not even trusting of the medical community. I also see, but there is that middle ground. And I think you're right. I remember being in the PICU with Michaela, and the night before I had a feeling something was wrong. And sure enough, Mickey's head started swelling after brain surgery. And the head doctor in the PICU said, I tell all my medical students that if a mother or father tell you this, you better listen or get out of medical school. Exactly. And it's true. And that is one of our 3 tenets of Mickey's Miracles, is trust your parental instinct, get to the highest level of care possible for a diagnosis and treatment urgently. And you just, knock those off 1, 2, 3. So we say thank you.
Yes. I mean, we agree, right? Yes, trust your instincts for sure.
Ashley, thank you so much. To find Ashley and the work that KVDS is doing, kvdsfoundation.org. You can also find them on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we're so grateful, Ashley, for your leadership and for your willingness to share, your experience as a mom and now as the leader of KDVS Foundation, and look forward so much to working with you and all those wonderful opportunities and organizations we have to improve kiddos' lives. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for letting me come and talk to you both today. You guys are doing such amazing stuff with Mickey's Miracles, and I'm excited for us to be partners and to talk more and keep moving everything forward.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, you guys.
And from us here at the Pediatric Epilepsy Podcast, we say thank you and be well.